Uh, I'm going to mute everyone. So if you're the first one up, please unmute yourself. And if you have any questions, feel free to chat me. I'm pretty sure we'll be on more than one screen. So if you do this, I may or may not see you. You can raise your hand virtually. And we have a lot to share this evening. So without further ado, I introduce Diane Zidman, one of the co-chairs of our Tikkun Olam committee, and tonight, of course, civic engagement. Diane, you're muted.
Diane, you're still muted.
Sorry about that. I'll start from the top.
Okay.
I'd like to welcome everyone to the Tikkun Olam Town Hall meeting tonight. I'm Diane Zidman, co-chair of Tikkun Olam Committee, and I'd like to introduce the other co-chair of Tikkun Olam, Wendy Rhodes.
Thank you, Diane. As Diane said, I'm Wendy Rhodes, the other co-chair of our Tikkun Olam Committee. I'm so grateful and proud of the work our congregation did around the civic engagement campaign, and I'm thrilled to see everyone here tonight. I'd like to introduce our next speaker, my friend and colleague, Rabbi Jonah Pesner, who is director of the Religious Action Center of Reform Judaism and senior vice president at the Union for Reform Judaism. Take it away, Jonah.
Rich, can you, do you hear it? Because we don't hear it.
Mute myself because it's coming through my computer.
Right, so unmute yourself, but when you share your screen, you have to hit share sound.
I think I did that. That I did.
Okay. All right, well, we'll let you know. Do it again.
Peace and blessings to you, my friends.
All right.
Shalom uvracha. Peace and blessings to you, my friends at Makom.
We hear him, but we don't see him.
Makom, which means place, the sacred dwelling, when you all come together.
No visual.
Okay, give me a second. That's what I tried to figure out before.
Okay.
Is he there now?
Not yet.
Just a descriptive slide.
Okay, and he's not on that slide. That's interesting. Is pause. Oh. So why am I, because my screen sharing is paused. Come on, go. All right, let me stop and share.
Hit the sound button.
I thought I did, but I didn't. You're right. Thank you. Do you see him now?
No, now you have to share your screen again.
Oh, we got to do that. You there?
Yes.
Let's see if we can hear him.
Give me 1 second.
Now hit play.
Shalom uvracha. Peace and blessings to you, my friends at Makom Solel Lakeside. Makom, which means place, the sacred dwelling, when you all come together in community, when you do justice and love mercy, you walk humbly and bring in God's spirit to your Makom, your sacred place. I'm Rabbi Jonah Pesner, the director of the Religious Action Center of Reform Judaism and the senior vice president of the Union for Reform Judaism, the largest and most diverse denomination in Jewish life. So proud of the incredible work of Makom Solel Lakeside for your civic engagement campaign. You joined with us at the RAC, Illinois, and the Religious Action Center across North America. Together, look at what you have done. Together, 15,000 Reform Jewish leaders reached out and engaged 560,000 voters. And you did it in Chicagoland, you did it in Illinois, You reached across lines of difference and engaged underrepresented voters, low-income communities, communities of color. You reached across the border into Wisconsin, into Milwaukee, to make sure that kol kolot, every voice was heard when every vote was counted. You made sure not only that we modeled 100% voting congregations to hold ourselves accountable as Reformed Jews, to engage in democracy and to protect the right to vote of our own people, but to reach across lines of difference, to beat back voter suppression, to work with underrepresented communities to make sure that they understood their rights, that together collectively we would push back on voter suppression. Together we reached an unprecedented number of first-time voters, of young people, of students, and protected their voting rights. Even now, as we speak, you are protecting democracy by continuing to advocate to make sure that the votes are counted, that the election is
Richard paused.
appropriate nonpartisan civic engagement work in the state of Georgia, where there is a history of racist voter suppression. We will make sure that regardless of who people vote for and what their party affiliation is, that folks have the right to vote. So Mazel Tov, Yesher Koach, Makom Solel Lakeside. Thank you for leaning into the civic engagement campaign. We look forward to your helping L'taken Olam b'malchut Shaddai, to repair the world in the image of the glorious way in which we can be a world in which God dwells, a world in which all people experience wholeness, blessing, and peace if we do it together. Shalom uvracha, peace and blessing.
It was a thrill to hear from Rabbi Pesner. And now I'd like to introduce our next speaker, who really doesn't need an introduction here, Rabbi Ike Serrata.
Well, good evening, everybody. And I want to thank my friend, Rabbi Pesner, for recording that for us and sending it. It's really great to hear him. And perhaps it helps give you all a sense of the strength and power of our movement and everything done these last months. We called this session tonight Genesis 2.0, and reminded me of a midrash that perhaps some of you know, that the midrash tells us that before God created this world, God created many worlds before this one. Right? God created these worlds and didn't find them to his liking. And so God created again and again, finally deciding to keep this one, right? Genesis 1.0 in a sense, to keep this one and make it work. But even in the Torah itself, we have a 2.0. We have creation, and then we have the flood. God starts again with Noah. And both that first story, the story of Adam and Eve, second story, the story of Noah, remind us that all human beings are one family. Being part of one family entitles every human being to love, honor, and respect, just as we love, honor, and respect members of our family. So it's up to us to love every family member, even believe what we believe. This is true within the Jewish community and outside us. The Torah reminds us over and over to love the stranger, to try and turn enemies into friends. And that's the work of Tikkun Olam. God is in this world for the long haul, and because we are partners with God in creation, so are we. No matter who sat in the White House or in the Senate, there has always been, and there always will be work to do. Our social justice work in our separate legacy congregations and Stronger Together as Solel Lakeside has gone on for years and years, and it will go on for years into the future. Tonight, we celebrate success. Our civic engagement, we get ready to go forward. In a few moments, towards the end of our meeting, we'll ask for you to help prioritize the issues that remain on our plate. There are many that our community has been involved in, many organizations with whom we have been partner allies. These relationships are always getting stronger, but priorities do shift based on the times and the desires of our community. Illinois has taken on immigration reform, which includes to some extent refugee rights, and criminal justice reform, particularly pre-trial. And that's the main focus of RAC Illinois. And we are active members of this coalition of Reform Jews. Our congregation has on these issues as well as on environmental issues, healthcare, which I think now has to include pandemic response, environmental issues. We work to erase, which may now include police reform, as well as things like fair housing, ending human trafficking and slavery, reducing gun violence, reducing anti-Semitism. I'm sure there are many other issues that I haven't thought of that we've worked on in the past. And of course, many of these issues have intertwined. We take comfort from the words of Pirkei Avot that we are not required to complete the tasks of making the world better, but we also, Judaism requires that we work toward the goal of building a just nation, a just world for every member of the human family. To be most effective in this, we need to set priorities, find particular legislation and particular action that we can support. In our civic engagement campaign, we had goals, being 100% voting congregation, encouraging voting everywhere, and we succeeded on both counts. We took direct action with interfaith non-partners in Wisconsin and Georgia to get out the vote. We made calls and sent postcards by the thousands, and we succeeded in increasing the number of Americans who voted this year. Now we can set new goals and work for them as we go forward. So towards the end of our call, a survey, please take a minute to let our Tikkun Olam committee know what passions you have, what issues you are concerned about, to help our community agenda in the work of being God's partner, transforming the world from what is to what ought to be. May we take the strength that we have demonstrated in months and turn it toward the next issue and the next after that, so that we can say the world, the nation is on track to positive growth and change. We have to work for Genesis 2.0 and then 3.0, moving ever closer to a world of love and justice. May this be God's will. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much for your inspiring words, Rabbi Sarada. So as you heard from Jonah Pesner earlier, a major part of our story of the successful campaign is the involvement of Makom Solel Lakeside congregational members. I'd like to call on our civic engagement campaign leaders to share what their work was. Our first speaker will be Ellen Gusson, who will speak about voter mobilization.
Thank you, Diane. And it's so nice to be with everybody here tonight. I'm going to tell you a little bit about what the mobilization voter pillar was all about. We began our efforts with the voter commitment survey that was sent to every member of Makom Solel Lakeside in August. We then followed up with members to get as many completed surveys as possible, targeting a separate survey for each eligible voter in every Makom household. Ironically, or in retrospect, this made it a little harder to calculate the actual percentage of congregant family units who responded, since many families had new voters, voting age children in their family, and we certainly wanted to count them as well. But we had the Steve Kornacki of Makom in Wayne, who was our tech person and really was terrific. And we were able to determine that we had well over a 50% response rate on completed surveys and a far greater number of responses because of all the follow-up we did with all of our members. So either by phone, email, or text, we really believe that we got as close to the 100% target that we had set as possible. And this can't go without thanks to our clergy and the Makom office staff, because the message was sent, was underscored over and over again from August through the election. It was announced at weekly services on Zoom, other Zoom events, and all the online classes. So I thank you all for participating. Then we had an adult enrichment program on Sunday, October 18th, where I tried to explain the 3 ways to vote. Because of COVID, we wanted everybody to be as comfortable with their voting choices as possible. We answered questions on voting locations and what websites you could go to for further information, and of a whole variety of what ifs. Early voting was to begin the next day on October 19th, but by then many of us had already voted our mail-in ballots, vote by mail, or you could drop them off at the county office. As an aside, I just want to state my original recommendation. I stand by my original recommendation to vote by mail. It is the most efficient and foolproof way to vote, and I think it proved, at least in Illinois, that it's a viable path. I've been doing it for many years because it is such a bonus to be able to research any candidates that are on the ballot with whom you might not be familiar, in the privacy of your own home, on your personal computer. And it certainly avoids getting caught off guard when you're in the voting booth and go, oh my God, who do I vote for in this? And on that note, I just want to point out that their elections are not over. We have now gotten all this commitment to vote. You must do it again. We have 2 upcoming elections. February 23rd, that consolidated primary may or may not take place. It takes place when there's too many people on the ballot. But the big main event is April 26, 2021, and who knows where we'll be with COVID at that time. So again, I recommend you go to your county web clerk website if you haven't already applied for a vote, a mail-in vote, and do it. It is a great way to vote. So I thank you all for making your commitment to always vote. It's one small but very important step toward Tikkun Olam. Thank you.
Thank you, Ellen, for all the work you did on mobilizing our voters. You did an awesome job. And now I'd like to introduce Rhonda Lindner, who will talk about our voter suppression pillar.
Okay, so I'm here to talk about combating voter suppression. As a congregation, Makom sent out just about 3,000 postcards through the RAC and Reclaim Our Vote initiative. And so many of us volunteered even more hours with phone banks and text banks. And it was really just a tremendous swelling of support for our democracy and our elections. So I want to thank everyone who wrote either one postcard or 100 postcards, who phone banked once or who phone banked 20, 30 times. Not a member of our congregation, but a member of our community. He made over He made over 1,000 phone calls, a member of the Wilmette congregation of Am Shalom. So it wasn't just our congregation, it was so many in our area. And to put this all in perspective, from Reclaim Our Vote, which was the organization that we worked with the RAC, in 2020, Reclaim Our Vote focused on Alabama, Arizona, Florida, Georgia, Mississippi, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Texas. Reclaim Our Vote estimates that they contacted 10 million voters, 6.4 million postcard addresses, more than 1.3 million phone calls, and more than 2 million texts. So we were, it's just so wonderful to see that Makom played our part as well. So I want to thank everyone for everything that, for all the time you put into combating voter suppression. And there's a chance to do more. So as so many of us know, there's a very important election in Georgia, the runoff election for 2 Senate seats that will determine the majority in the U.S. Senate. So the RAC is once again partnering with Reclaim Our Vote and is already getting postcards ready. And many members of our Tikkun Olam committee have requested postcards. When they are available, you will once again get an email from me that will remind you to that there's a chance for you to send even more postcards for this very important Georgia election. So if you have received emails from me in the past, then you are on my email list. If you have not received emails from me in the past about postcarding, I will write my email in the chat. Please write me an email and I will add you to my list. And I estimate that we should be getting these postcards in maybe next week. So be on the lookout. So Again, thanks so much for all the hard work you put in, and there's still more postcarding to go. So thanks so much.
Thank you, Rhonda, and thank you for everything you've done. You really did an awesome job. Now I'd like to introduce Amy Plotnick and Ella Kaplan from our Student Engagement Pillar.
Hi, I had the privilege of leading the pillar for engaging student voters. Tonight, Ella Kaplan is here as our youth representative for the Tikkun Alum Committee, and we'll be hearing from her shortly. I would also like to introduce Emily Helfand, who has joined our committee as well as another youth representative. Are you here, Emily? You should be here.
I am here.
Hi, Emily, welcome.
Hi. Thank you.
Any other Makom High School students are welcome and encouraged to join and share their thoughts and concerns facing their generation to become involved in issues that really concern them. So please get the word out. If you have any grandchildren or children who would love to be a part of us, we would certainly welcome you. Also, I would like to give a tremendous thank you to Josh Hollander and Aidan Morrison, who stepped up to be involved and made a wonderful contribution in actively trying to engage other first-time voters to have their voices heard by exercising their civic duty to vote. So now I would love to turn this over to Ella, who has a few words she would like to share.
Thank you, Amy. Hi, everybody. My name is Ella Kaplan. I'm a part of the Student Civic Engagement Pillar here at Makom Solel Lakeside. Even though I'm not able to vote because of my age as a 16-year-old, I felt as though I needed to advocate for the youth in the future who will be able to vote and the ones who can right now. So it's important to educate the youth on why voting matters, because the youth will essentially be living through the changes in today's world. Although the election is behind us and also in the future as well, the one in April, I still want to use my voice to be heard on other topics that are relevant to the youth and to us all. For say, climate change is an important topic that could impact our world for the worse if we don't do something about it now. It is especially impactful on the youth, as we will be living through the changes presented in the future. Someone like Greta Thunberg has been using her voice to ratify change for our climate, and is especially impactful because it is coming from someone who is so young. I would love to do the same, but it starts with the smallest efforts, of course. Hopefully by first making changes in our community, it will lead to a greater outcome. In the future, I would love to expand, and we are expanding the civic engagement pillar beyond just voting and focus on other prevalent issues like climate concerns and equal pay. There's endless opportunity for change, and it all starts with the smallest efforts in our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Ella, for your beautiful words. You are truly an inspiration to all of us. I mean, the youth are definitely our future, and we will listen and take into account every single word you told us tonight. So your voice has definitely been heard tonight. So we have celebrated our successful civic engagement campaign, but we all realize there is so much more work to repair the world, as Ella just told us. The Tikkun Alum Committee is committed to continue working with our national, state, and local partners on the many issues that are confronting our country. And we assure you, we are anxious to hear all of your voices. So now I'd like to introduce the man behind the slides, Rich Amon.
And it helps if we can put it to a vote. We can have a poll whether I should unmute myself or not, but I chose to. So the social justice arm of the Union Reform Judaism, the URJ, is a religious action center. And through their, I'm struggling multitasking, I'm sorry. And through the recommendations of the Commission of Social Action, in accordance with the URJ and CCR guidelines, they identify the social justice issues that should be addressed through the Reformed Jewish lens to repair the world. On the next two slides, we are listing issues the RAC feels relevant today and continues to advocate before. Prior to the election and the pandemic, the topics highlighted in yellow were the ones that the CSA identified as their top priority. There we go. The rest of the slides are topics that are ongoing under the RAC leadership and through their legislative aids. Information on all of these topics is available at rac.org or in the tent on the specific topic. And if something is of interest to you, I would go to the tent and enjoy a national, one of the cohort groups. And let me do this. Okay, there's the first slide. And there were several Jewish exit polls conducted after the election. And what I'm showing here is, and what's surprising, despite the diversity of the polls themselves, the topics everybody considered important fell basically in the same hierarchy. So what I'm showing is in the, how each of these topics were ranked, and then the percentage that put these topics as the number one issue. So healthcare was number one with 30% of the vote. Environment was the third one. The pandemic happened to be number one. So, I mean, not surprisingly. So, so these are various topics that, we can address in the poll. There's going to be a poll posted, or we can address in the survey. Illinois is fortunate to have a state affiliate, which is one of the concentric circles in how we address issues. And our Illinois state affiliate is under the leadership of Makom member Julie Webb. Using the national issues as a guide, RAC Illinois identifies issues of particular interest within Illinois and works in coalition with partners to address these concerns. Here to explain more about RAC Illinois and a critical local campaign is Julie.
Hi, everybody. And Rich, would you mind going off of the slides for a second?
Sure.
Just so I can see folks' faces. Hey, everybody, how are you? It's good to see so many people here on this call tonight. And I just have to say that first of all, I'm really honored to be asked to be here this evening, but especially I am really personally proud and touched at the work Makom Solel Lakeside has done and is doing with regards to civic engagement and with our ongoing issue organizing. I feel like this call is a call. We are the leaders of this work in our movement in the state of Illinois. When I look at all the faces on this call, so many of you are instrumental at the state level and in our work, in addition to just having this outstanding civic engagement work. So, I'm doubly honored in so many ways just to be a member of this community. For those of you who aren't familiar with RAC Illinois, and I think there aren't too many because I know most of you are on some committee we have going somewhere. So RAC Illinois is as Rich said, is the statewide organizing project of the Religious Action Center. But one thing Rich said, which I want to take issue with a little bit, is that RAC Illinois doesn't select the issues we work on. Well, it does, so I won't disagree. But really, RAC Illinois is the organized Reform Jewish community in our state. So the way that we actually identified what are our priorities, what do we want to work on, is through a series of one-to-one conversations with many people that are on this call, and also through a convening of leaders coming together in so many different ways. And through this all happened during the year of 2017. And by the time we actually launched and we became a public organization, we had identified two issues that our leaders felt were where they felt most deeply passionate and had the most breadth of interest, and just really a feel of being called to act through their Jewish values and with their Jewish community. And I think this is not surprising. The first one is immigrant justice. And, this is not a surprise, right? Because this is our own story. And so people do absolutely feel, like we want to make sure that this is a safe and welcoming place for all of the residents of our state, regardless of of where their origins are. And then the second issue that leaders across the state came together and said and ratified many times is racial justice, which is a huge issue that is, it's not even an issue, it's a problem. And so you have to cut it down and narrow it, in terms of how are you going to address that. And that I think is also not surprising to hear that this is something that, our community writ large in Illinois feels called to act on, because I think it's hard to be a member, to be a resident of the state of Illinois and see such extreme disparity between communities that can be no more than 10 miles apart in terms of what their lived experience is in all realms of life. We sort of focused on criminal justice as our first area that we're really tackling, but we also, I think, so much feel that there's many ways that we can focus on racial justice, and so these are our two priority areas. But before I dig into the actual issue campaign that Rich and others asked me to share a little bit about, I actually want to just congratulate Makom Solel Lakeside. And I know Rabbi Pesner at the beginning talked about the huge impact that we had at the national level with our civic engagement work. And I also just want to say a special shout out again to this leader of leaders, community that we have, because so many people literally on this screen and even beyond played a tremendous role in the success of all of RAC Illinois combined. And I'll just say a couple things. It is the hot off the presses, and these numbers I haven't even shared them out with anyone else yet. So you're the first to hear this, but I think it's pretty amazing that at the beginning of this campaign, just like Makom, we set goals. In 2018, we held 2 gubernatorial forums, and we had about 350 people at both of those. We had about 5 congregations that really sort of dug in and did civic engagement work. And so, let's say we had maybe 1,500 voter contacts in 5 congregations. Well, I will say I'm just thrilled to share that in this past year so far, and this is just the preliminary information, across RAC Illinois, all the congregations, we had over 1,200 leaders actively involved in leading this work across our movement, with almost 40,000 voter contacts where we individually reached out to people to get them information to the 3 pillars that you just heard all of our leaders here at Makom speak about. And that is from 26 congregations. So I think there's just no way we can say this campaign was anything but a tremendous success thanks to the efforts of all of you. And just to say, Rabbi Serrata sits on the core team of RAC Illinois. Rich is on the CSA, which is the policy board for the justice work of our movement. Rich was also one of our coaches that we had a pilot initiative of coaches that helped coach congregations, to be able to, so they could do this work. And I have to really thank Rhonda Lindner, who not only took on coaching in Wisconsin, but literally moved to Wisconsin to be able to lead this effort effectively from Wisconsin. And then last but not least, Jack Kaplan was the chair of this campaign across the state of Illinois. And honestly, we could not have done a tenth of what we did without Jack's leadership. And so just want to lift him up too. So, but what is the point of all this work? It's not just to get people out to vote, which, of course, that's the first step, and that's the most basic element of democracy. But whoever is elected, as Rabbi Serrata said at the beginning of this call, that's where the work begins. No matter who is elected, that's where the next level of work begins. And so, as I think Rich mentioned, one of the campaigns that we've been working on, and several people have already been doing a lot of work on this, is the campaign to end money bond in Illinois. And if you want to go to the next slide, Rich. First, I just want to tell you a little bit about this campaign, but do you have the video as well? Do you have that ready to go? Rich, you are.
Yes, I have it ready to go. Whether it works or not remains to be seen. But
Okay, well, before we start, I'll just say that RAC Illinois is a member, is an active partner in the Illinois Network for Pretrial Justice. And that network includes more than 30 organizations across the state, representing 9 counties, and from every corner or whatever you want to call the state of Illinois, from every part of the state of Illinois. And actually, we bring a lot of diversity into that group. And I will just say we had our virtual lobby day last Thursday. Several people in this congregation were on various legislative visits and or on the rally at the end of the day. And one of the things that the organizer said at the end of the day was, I just want you to know your group really threw it down. And I double checked, it's not the same as dropping the ball. Just so you know, we threw it down is a really good thing. And so, and I will tell you more about the specifics of this, but first, just to sort of communicate in a real life story, Rich, if you can play the video, we will hear that.
I will try.
Okay.
Share. Okay, so that's set up right. Oh, amazing.
Oops, we need the sound again.
We don't see it either.
You just stopped sharing rather than starting sharing.
I thought I should, hold on. Share.
As he said, all I want is just peace. And we'll just look at him and laugh and say, did you hear what he just said?
Can't see
I
it.
was going through a divorce. A lot of
You see it now?
I had been up for like 3 days.
You can hear it,
I
but
was
you can't see it.
extremely fatigued.
We're seeing your PowerPoint preview. We're not seeing.
Oh, okay, so
Told
it's
me
on
my
touch
bill.
screen.
Okay.
Okay.
I almost
In 1
fainted.
second.
I couldn't move.
Do it this way.
I've lived on the south side of Chicago all my life.
Bear with me, I'm sorry.
Okay.
It's hard when you have more than one
Up for
screen, I
like
know.
3 days.
I think instead of sharing your screen, you're sharing your PowerPoint application. So everything else just looks gray.
Maybe we can just even listen to the story. It's only a couple of minutes long.
My son is amazing.
There we go.
He's along well with his sister, but of course he's 5, she's 14. He feels like I'm in the house with 2 women. Sometimes he say, all I want is just peace. And we'll just look at him and laugh and say, did you hear what he just said? I was going through a divorce. A lot of things got bitter, and I had an altercation with my mother-in-law. I had no inkling that I was going to be arrested because I didn't start it. I was defending myself. After 3 days of lockup, I was taken to court. I remember going there and it sounded like you're at an auction. You can't talk to the judge, you can't say anything. Just stand there, put your hands behind your back. The judge assessed my bail at $250,000, $25,000 to walk. I'm like, I don't have a background. I've never been to jail. You know, why would my bond be so high? I'm 46 years old and my entire life was determined right there within 30 seconds. I was in jail for 14 months. I lost my business, my housing. I couldn't see my kids just because I couldn't make bail. In the end, I took a plea, not because I didn't think I could beat the case, but because I needed to be with my children. They had already suffered enough. I don't think that society is really understanding when you incarcerate women, you're incarcerating the whole family.
Thank you. And then do you want to?
I'll get rid of that. So let me do.
So you can go on to the next one. I won't go into too much detail on this campaign other than to say, if you were there when we actually kicked off our campaigns last February at Temple Jeremiah, it was quite an amazing thing. We had almost 400 people from, congregations throughout the state. And this was one of our campaigns, which is now we're actually gearing up for it and we had our lobby day, as I said, last week in a virtual way with many people here that were part of that work. But bond reform and the whole idea of having to pay to be able to be released, the need for, at the cutting edge of reforming the criminal justice system, this is really probably the most impactful thing we could do in the coming year. And I'll just hit a few of these things here. I think the key one is that almost 250,000 people are incarcerated in our jails every year, and more than 90% of those people are held pre-trial, which means they have not been convicted of one thing. They've only been accused, and then a judge has set a bail price, and the majority of those people who are held incarcerated pre-trial are incarcerated simply because they cannot afford to pay their money bond. And this 90% of people that are incarcerated pre-trial is a much higher number than the national average of 67%. And so the real need for reform on this issue is huge. You can go on to the next slide, Rich. So, why does pretrial freedom matter? Why does it really make a difference? Well, I think if you just look at these stats, you can see the numbers tell the story. Being incarcerated pre-trial makes it harder for someone, first of all, to participate in their own defense. People in jail are more likely to be convicted and they serve longer sentences than people who are free awaiting trial. And this is obviously unfair when the main reason those people are being held up or held captive is because how much money they have. So two people accused of the exact same thing with the exact same evidence against them, one can walk because they can pay their bond and the other cannot afford to pay for their freedom. And so they are held pre-trial. And that can go on for weeks, months. Some people have been held pre-trial for years by the time their case slowly works its way through the court. And I think this also goes really against the heart of locking people up who are presumed innocent. That's at the core of our judicial system, and yet so many people are held hostage. And another last thing I'll say is that pretrial incarceration like this also increases or decreases the safety for the whole community because it's very destabilizing to the individual who is incarcerated. Obviously, I mean, even if they're only held for a weekend, many people, if they don't show up the next day, they are at risk of losing their job. So people who are held for even a couple of weeks, not only are at risk of, but actually do lose their job. They lose then their housing. Sometimes they lose custody of their children who go into the child and family services. And when someone's life is destabilized, and not just their life, but the lives of their family and all of the people around them, the whole community is less safe because then people have many fewer options when their only options of how they can make a living, where they can live, how they can feed their family is taken away. And so really addressing this issue has so many key things that really go to public safety, to the root of public safety. I'll also say that if you want to go on to the next slide, that's fine. I'm not going to go over every element of the Pretrial Fairness Act, but I'll just say that our partners in this campaign, led by the Illinois Justice Project, which are some of the most extraordinary, strategic, just smartest people I've ever met that have really researched this issue, have looked at all the places in the country that already do not have pretrial incarceration, which includes the federal justice system, the juvenile justice system in the state of Illinois, several states, including New York, New Jersey, Washington, D.C., do not have a money bond system. And all of that work has gone into creating a very comprehensive approach to addressing this problem of money bond. It's not just like end money bond and then we don't know, we'll see what happens. But they've really created a whole system which is best practices of everyone who has done this work throughout the country. So just want to say there's lots of information for folks who are interested in more details. And we are going to be working on this. If they end up having veto session after the first of the year, we will let folks know. But I'm going to put something in the chat right now, which is a call to action for everybody on this call, which is one of the things we're doing is generating letters to all of your state legislators, your state reps, and your state senators. And this is very much like a RAC action alert. If you've ever completed one of these, you put in your name and address and that type of thing, and they automatically generate a letter that is sent to your proper person, your senator and your House member. It's a already written letter, but you can also tailor it if you prefer, but it really takes less than 2 minutes. So if everyone just copies that link and or clicks on it, what we're wanting to do is let people across the state, let legislators know that this is a high priority for not just people that are directly impacted by high incarceration rates, but that this is something that we care about too as Jews and as a Jewish community. And so this is not only can you fill this out, but send it to all of your friends. You don't have to be Jewish. This is not a Jewish thing, but you do have to be from Illinois. So only and especially if you know anybody in Carbondale or way downstate, we want those legislators also to get the word that this is something that we are serious about passing in 2020. And the last thing I'll say is that this is Governor Pritzker's #1 priority in terms of criminal justice reform this year. And we have a real chance to win this campaign, either in veto or in 2021. And so all of this work could completely transform the criminal justice system. It's just a first step, but it's a huge step because this is where people get tripped up and caught in a never-ending cycle with the criminal justice system. And if we can disrupt this, we can really make a dent in mass incarceration in Illinois. So thank you.
I guess it's me, and I stopped chewing gum, so I might be able to get through this one a little bit better. So the third advocacy group is our own Makom community. The Social Action Working Group formed during the merger developed the following statement of our guiding principles. Both of our sacred legacy congregations have a historic commitment to Tikkun Olam. Now, as Makom Solel, we passionately reaffirm that commitment. Our work reflects a wide range of congressional interests and issues. And here is a list of a partial list of what our various organizations are working on, either within the temple or with community partners. And again, we're going to if anybody's interested in being involved in any of these, there's going to be a link to Wendy and Wendy or Diane. They'll have a link. You can contact them, and they'll put you in touch with the leaders of each pillar.
Thank you, Rich. And I'd like to personally thank Julie Webb for the fabulous presentation tonight. Next, I'd like to call on Rhonda Lindner and Karen Flieger to talk about our poll and a little bit of what's next. Rhonda?
called away to another meeting. So she had to leave. So on behalf of both Karen and myself, want to remind everyone that we are the Team SEDIC captains, which means that our role is to help you engage in your work of Tikkun Olam. Please keep us posted about your ideas and your passions. The next couple of slides here ask you to fill out a survey about your top 2 areas of social action projects. Please fill out the survey. I believe there are 4 slides. Your answers will, of course, help guide Makom towards our goal of Tikkun Olam. So thanks so much. And again, I want to remind when we do this survey, it asks you for your first top priority for Tikkun Olam, but then there's a slide later that asks you for your second priority. So don't think you only have to choose one, you can choose 2. And continue to keep Karen and myself informed. I put my email earlier in the chat about any ideas and passion projects that you have and what we can do to help you. So I believe there's time to take the survey.
So I only had the age and the gender survey.
Yeah,
I didn't have the other one.
Okay, I thought it was in there.
Right.
All right, so actually it's a repeat of so I guess I would ask everybody to fill out the survey. This was for those who weren't going to complete the survey, this was trying to get your interest. So if you complete the survey that'll be reposted in the chat, we'll capture the same information.
Yeah, right, post in the chat.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Rhonda. Thank you, Rich. And here, we'll give you a couple of minutes to fill this out. Oh,
We
there's
don't
our,
need to. I guess it's interesting to see who's attending. That's fine.
okay. Oh, here. Now it keeps popping up, sorry. Okay, so now I'd like to ask Wendy Rhodes to kind of bring this to an end for us. But before I introduce her again, once again, I'd like to thank you all for attending tonight. And I'd like to tell you that we would love to have you involved in Tikkun Olam. As you will see, Wendy and my name will be posted with our email addresses. Contact us for anything that you're interested in doing. We welcome you on our committee and we welcome you to help us repair the world.
So thanks, Diane. I want to add my thanks to the mix for everyone for joining us tonight and for all who participated in our successful civic engagement campaign. Please complete the survey, as we mentioned, which Rich will be reposting in the chat or has reposted in the chat. Before I turn it over to Cantor J for our big close, I want to mention and reiterate that beyond the opportunities we outlined tonight, there will be other possibilities for you to get involved. We will continue to do programming around anti-racism, for example. So please stay tuned for that. And please mark your calendars for Monday evening, January 4th, when we will have a Welcome the New Year with Tikkun Olam Roundtable. We hope to see you there, champagne flutes in hand. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Cantor J.
Thanks, Wendy, and thanks, Diane, and thanks to everybody. This is so inspiring, and you know, we certainly can't stop the efforts now. We're just building momentum, and I'm feeling so inspired and so fortunate to be in the midst of so many change makers in so many different demographics of our community. It's really awesome. So got a song to share to close things up, and it's a really inspiring song. It's called Praying with Our Feet. And these are some famous words that were spoken by Abraham Joshua Heschel, who is a fantastic rabbi, one of the great American rabbis, Jewish leaders who stood up for not just the rights of Jewish citizens of America, but citizens of all of America, African Americans, and every single group within our broader community who faces adversity and who needs all of our help to ensure fairness and justice. So hope you guys enjoyed this song. It's called Praying with Our Feet. And it's just got a really sweet message. So here again, Praying with Our Feet to close off a wonderful Tikkun Olam Town Hall. Here's how it goes. Let us gather all together in the cold and in the heat, and make a vow that history's cruel lessons won't repeat. We will not stand idly by and watch our values die. When we heed the call for justice, we are praying with our feet. Hear our footsteps on the pavement, let them echo in the street. Feel the longing in our hearts growing stronger with each beat. It's time to take a stand. We're marching hand in hand. When we heed the call for justice, we are praying with our feet. From California coast to Selma's cruel concrete, from the towers of New York City to the fields of Kansas wheat, wherever people are divided by justice that's one-sided. When our voices rise and protest, we are praying with our feet. Hear our footsteps on the pavement, let them echo in the street. Feel the longing in our hearts growing stronger with each beat. It's time to take a stand. We're marching hand in hand. When we heed the call for justice, we are praying with our feet. In the classrooms, in the courtrooms, in the executive suite, the healing of our world awaits. Our task is incomplete. Our work we may not finish, but our passion won't diminish. And when we work for freedom's promise, we are praying with our feet. Hear our footsteps on the pavement, let them echo in the street. Feel the longing in our hearts growing stronger with each beat. It's time to take a stand. We're marching hand in hand. When we heed the call for justice, we are praying with our feet. And when our voices rise in protest, we are praying with our feet. And when we heed the call for justice, we are praying with our feet.
Jay, thank you so much. I can't think of a better song to close the evening. And as a couple of people have said in the chat, we can pray by clicking, we can pray by writing, we can pray by doing a lot of other things. So lots of actions to take. And again, thank you to everyone who participated and everyone who is on the call tonight. Thank you. And may you all have a beautiful rest of the evening.
Amen. Take care,
Amen.
everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.